Hey there folks, it's Blue here at Blue Bears Games, and for today's video, I will be showing you the newest addition to my pre-con commander deck offerings. It uses Shelob, Child of Ungoliant as the general, and is a spider tribal deck with a small twist to it compared to the Ishkanah deck that I featured on the channel a few months ago. The twist will deal with Shelob's very unique last ability, so let me tell you all about her. Shelob is a 6-mana, 8/8 legendary spider with 4 abilities tacked onto what is already a great valued body at that mana cost. It doesn't have reach, which is odd for a spider, but it does have death touch, which is a great trade-off. It also has ward 2, which gives it some protection because ward means that anytime it becomes the target of a spell or an ability that an opponent controls, they must pay the ward cost or you counter that spell or ability. It's not hexproof, but it's close enough, right? The third ability is that it grants all other spiders you control death touch and ward 2 as well. If you stopped there, those alone would make Shelob a pretty good general to helm a Spider Tribal Commander deck, but it has one more ability that is very unique and quite good. It will need some explanation to fully understand for some, so let me explain it as best as I can. It states that whenever another creature dealt damage by a spider you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food artifact with 2 tap and sacrifice this artifact to gain 3 life, and it loses all other card types. That's a lot of text, so let me simplify it a little for you. Basically, if a creature dies and a spider you control damaged it in some way, you create a food token that's a copy of it, but it's only a food artifact token. It's no longer a creature, but it keeps all of the abilities that were originally on the card. This may leave you with some food tokens that have abilities that aren't useful at all, but it can also leave you with food tokens that have some really helpful activated or triggered abilities as well. For example, a food token with First Strike isn't very helpful, but a food token with something like Zealoport Cutthroat's triggered ability, or a food token with Llanowar Elves' activated ability, could be very beneficial to you throughout a game. When I get to the artifacts section of this deck, I'm going to show you a way to get one of the most useful tokens that you can for this build, but that's getting ahead of myself. Why don't I just show you the deck and we will get there soon enough. So as I like to do, I'll start with the lands as always. It's a budget build, so it's going to be a budget land base. We'll start with Path of Ancestry. It enters tapped, unfortunately, but it can tap to add a mana of any color of your commander's identity, which is great because everything in here is going to mostly be green, but there are a couple black cards. And then if you use that mana to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, you get to scry 1, which is always nice, especially in colors that don't tap or don't have good card draw. Then we're going to go into budget dual lands, so Foul Orchard, Golgari Guildgate, Jungle Hollow, that one at least gives you a life, Thriving Grove, and then, of course, Thriving Moor, and then budget fetch lands in Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. Now, the rest of it's going to be basic lands, so it's going to be forests and swamps, and it's going to be heavier based on forests and swamps because this is more green than it is black. Next up, I'm going to go over the ramp section. There will be no mana rocks. We're in green, so we can go search for lands and put them into play, which does a couple things. It actually puts land into play, ramping you, but it also thins your deck out of lands for later draws. I'll start with Caravan Vigil. It's a 1-to-cast sorcery that searches your library for a basic land card and puts it in your hand. However, it has Morbid, and that says that whenever you do search for that land, you can put it into play tapped if a creature died this turn. This deck is going to be full of death touchers and reaching spiders that can kill things. Something most likely will have died when you go to play it, especially if it's later in the game, so you can actually put something into play for 1 green instead of for 2 or 3. Up next, Rampant Growth. It's 2 to cast, goes and searches for a basic land and puts it into play. It's pretty simple. Most of the cards will do that. Far Wanderings is 3 to cast at sorcery speed, and it goes and gets a land and puts it into play for you. However, if you have Threshold, which is to say that if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can instead search for 3 basic land cards and put them into play tapped. Natural Connection, 3 to cast, searches for a land, puts it into play at instant speed. Field Trip does it at sorcery speed, and then you can learn, which isn't really all that important, but you may be able to loot to get a better card. Beneath the Sands, 3 to cast as well, goes and gets a land, puts it into play, but you can also, if you need to, instead cycle it, which is to discard it and draw a card for 2, for later if you don't need the land. And the last card is Map the Wastes. 3 to cast, goes and searches for land, puts it into play, but then it bolsters 1, which is to say that when it's cast, you can also put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, which could be important for later. The creature section of this deck is going to be the biggest section of the deck. It's going to be all spiders, and they all, for the most part, I think maybe 1 or 2 don't have reach. Reach means that it can block a creature with flying, which is important, because if Shelob is out and they have death touch, now they are death-touching creatures that can block flyers, as well as ground creatures. So I'm going to tell you all the names and tell you the powers and toughnesses, but they're all going to be basically the same. Some have some better abilities than others. Start with Deadly Recluse. It's a 1/2 reaching death toucher for 2.
Canopy Spider is a 2 to cast 1/3. Obviously, it has reach, but here's the reason why I like some of the spiders. They have big butts. So later I'm going to show you some cards that are fight cards, and the bigger the toughness, the better off they'll be able to survive the fights. Spore Spinner, it's 2 to cast 1/3. That also has reach, but when it blocks a creature with flying, it gets +2/+0. Net Caster Spider, it's a 3 to cast 2/3 with reach, and then whenever it blocks a creature with flying, it gets +2/+0 as well, so it can be a 4/3. Runeclaw Recluse, it's a 3 to cast 1/4 with reach. Spore Cap Spider, it's a 3 to cast 1/5 with reach. Web Spinner Cuff is a 3 to cast 1/4 with reach, but it's actually a artifact creature that's an equipment spider. So what that means is that you can reconfigure it, which means you can pay 4 to attach it to a creature, and it now counts as a equipment instead of a creature. And it will give that creature +1/+4 into reach as well. Twin Silk Spider, it's a 3 to cast 1/2 with reach that when it enters the battlefield, you create another 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Gloom Widow is a 3 to cast 3/3 with reach, but it can only block creatures with flying. Oran Reef Recluse is a 3 to cast 1/3 with kicker, and the kicker is 3, so when you play this, you can pay the additional 3. It has reach, and then if you pay the kicker cost, you can destroy a creature with flying. Rib Cage Spider is a 3 to cast 1/4 that also has reach. So far, everything has had reach. I think this one doesn't. It's Woolly Spider. It's an oldie but goodie. It's a 3 to cast 2/3 that can block creatures with flying, so it does have reach. And if it is assigned to block a creature with flying, or if it blocks a creature with flying, it gets +0/+2. So instead of adding to its power, this one adds to its toughness. Root Spider. This one's the one that doesn't have reach. Root Spider is a 4 to cast 2/2 that if it's assigned as a blocker in general, it gains first strike and +1/+0, so it will become a 3/2 first striker, which is good if you're giving it Death Touch, because Death Touch and first strike, really good combinations. Grave Robber Spider is a 4 to cast 2/4 with reach, and it has an ability that for each black and 3 you pay into it, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard, but you can only activate it once a turn. Brood Weaver is a 4 to cast 2/4 with reach, and then when it dies, you create a 1/2 green spider token with reach. So when it dies, it splits. Swift Spinner is a 4 to cast 2/3 with reach, but it also has flash, which means you can cast it anytime you can cast an instant. Penumbra Spider is a 4 to cast 2/4 with reach, that when it dies, you create a 2/4 black spider creature token with reach. So you create a duplicate of itself, but it's black instead of green. Kessig Recluse is a 4 to cast 2/4 with reach and Death Touch, so it has its own built-in Death Touch, just like the first one I showed you. Arasta of the Endless Web is a 4 to cast 3/5, has reach as well, and then whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So if you're playing against somebody who is a Spellslinger deck, you're going to be creating a lot of tokens. Somber Walled Spider is a 5 to cast 2/4 with reach and has Morbid, which is to say that it will enter the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it if a creature died this turn before you cast it. Funnel Web Recluse is a 5 to cast 3/5 with reach, and it also has Morbid, and that means that when it enters the battlefield, if a creature died this turn, you investigate, which is you create a clue token that you can later sacrifice to draw a card for 2. Watcher in the Web is a 4 to cast 2/5 reacher that can block an additional creature each combat, so it can block multiples. That can get kind of hairy if you don't know the rulings on that. Mammoth Spider is a 5 to cast 3/5 reach. Stinger Fling Spider is a 5 to cast 2/5 reacher that when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy a creature with flying. See what this is an anti-flying deck as well, but naturally just because it's spiders. Sentinel Spider is a 5 to cast 4/4 vigilance and reach. Silk Lash Spider is a 5 to cast 2/7 with reach that also has an ability that you can pay 2 and an X, and it will deal X damage to each creature with flying. The cool thing is if it has Death Touch, you only need to deal 1 damage for all of them to die, and imagine if you can get all those creatures as tokens because of what Shelob does. So this is one of the key factors in this deck. This is a key piece because if it has Death Touch, it can kill every flyer on the board for 3. Arachnus Spinner is a 6 to cast 5/7 with reach that you tap an untapped spider you control to search your graveyard and or library for a card named Arachnus Web and put it onto the battlefield attached to target creature. I will show you what Arachnus Web does when I get to it. It's in the enchantment section. The only truly black spider is Drider that I have and can put in the deck. I don't own any of the other ones. There are 2 more. It's a 5 to cast 4/3 with reach, and then when it deals combat damage to a player, you create a 2/1 black spider creature token with menace and reach. Obelisk Spider is a 3 to cast 1/4 with reach. When it deals combat damage to a creature, you put a -1/-1 counter on that creature. And whenever you put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, each opponent will lose a life and you will gain a life. Now, this deck isn't centered around this. I do have a deck that I do for 60 card that's built around this. It's just a nice 3 to cast 1/4 with reach that goes into this deck because it fits the colors. But other than that, this deck is not built around that. It's built around Shelob. Skyfisher Spider is a 4 to cast 3/3 with reach, and when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature, and when you do, you can destroy a non-land permanent, any that you choose. It's obviously going to be your opponent's, so it's nice that you can use one of your own to sacrifice it, and then it will destroy it. Basically, it will become a Desert Twister. And then when Skyfisher Spider itself dies, you may gain 1 life for each creature card in your graveyard, and if you do, you exile Skyfisher Spider. Rot Widow Pack is a 4 to cast 2/4 with reach. Has an ability that for a black, a green, and 3, exile a creature card from your graveyard to create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Then each opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. So it can be a little bit of damage for you that you need. The instants and sorceries of this deck are pretty utilitarian. I got some destruction spells, and then I have some utility stuff for card draw and whatnot. So the creature destruction I chose for this deck is actually in the form of fight cards. What fight means is that each creature deals damage equal to its power to each other. That's what fighting means. So we start off with basically the first one ever, which is Prey Upon. Actually, I think there's a red one that was before this, but it's the most, it's the one everybody refers to. Next one is Savage Swipe. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn if you can control a creature with if it has power of 2. Then it fights a creature you don't control. Prize Fight. 2 to cast, target creature you control fights a creature you don't control, so another fight card, but you get to create a treasure token, so it's a little bit of ramp. Savage Punch, 2 to cast, 2 creatures fight. It's a creature you control and a creature you don't control. And then it has Ferocious, that says that the creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn before it fights, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. Epic Confrontation, 2 to cast, target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn, and then it fights a creature you don't control. Duel for Dominance. It's 2 to cast. It has Coven, which says that you choose target creature that you control and target creature that you don't control. If you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, put a +1/+1 counter on the chosen creature you control. Then it fights the creature you don't control. Mage Duel, 3 to cast. It costs 2 less to cast if you cast another instant or sorcery this turn. And then target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn, and then it fights another creature that you don't control. Time to Feed, 3 to cast. Choose target creature and opponent controls, and when that creature dies this turn, you gain 3 life, and then target creature you control fights that creature. Struggle for Skemfar. It's a 4 to cast sorcery that you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that you control, and then that creature fights up to 1 target creature that you don't control, and you can foretell this, which is you pay its foretell cost, which is 2. You put it face down, and then on a later turn, you can pay 1 to cast it. Hunt the Weak, 4 to cast, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and then that creature fights another creature you control. So those are the fight cards, those are the creature removal cards. As far as other removal goes, we have Artifact and Enchantment removal. Naturalize, Return to Nature, and then Reclaiming Vines does a land as well. By now you should know, if you've seen some of my other videos, I like to put land destruction in every deck just because you never know what you're going to find. So that's why that's in there, in place of a land that does it. Card draw, we have, it's not really, I say it's card draw, it's quasi card draw. We start with Adventurous Impulse, it's 1 to cast. You look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or a land from among them and put it in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Seek the Wilds is similar to that. You look at the top 4 cards, you take a creature or a land, put it in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Track Down is similar, except for it's worded differently. So it's 2 to cast. You scry 3, then you reveal a card from the top of your library. And if it's a creature or a land, you draw it, which is the only actual draw out of the 3. Beast Hunt, 4 to cast, reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all creature cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your or into your graveyard. Sorry. This is very creature heavy, so you should hit at least 2 out of the 3. And the last card draw card is actually a card draw card. It actually says draw. It's Shamanic Revelation. It's 5 to cast. You draw a card for each creature you control. And then it has Ferocious, which is if you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. And the last instant / sorcery is Spider Spawning. Its utility, it's 5 to cast. You create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach for each creature card in your graveyard, and then you can flash it back for 7. The enchantments are all utility stuff and some on-theme stuff. So on-theme is Hidden Spider. It's a 1 to cast enchantment that says when one of your opponents successfully casts a creature with flying, if Hidden Spider is an enchantment, Hidden Spider becomes a 3/5 creature that can block creatures with flying. That also counts as a spider. So it becomes a 3/5 spider with reach for 1 to cast. So if you're lucky enough to put that into play first turn and somebody plays a 1 to cast flyer, you get a 3/5 reacher for 1. Assault Formation is actually very good utility in this deck. It's a 2 to cast enchantment. It says each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Then it has 2 other abilities. The first one is you can pay a green to have target creature with Defender be able to attack this turn as if though it doesn't have Defender. That doesn't matter in this deck because nothing has Defender. However, the second one does. For every 3 you put into it, creatures you control get +0, +1 until end of turn. Basically beefing up your guys. So when you have to use the fight cards, you can actually beef your guys up even more so that they don't die. Here's the Arachnus Web. It's a 3 to cast enchantment. It's an aura. Enchanted creature can't attack, can't block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. It's great for locking down other people's commanders as long as the next line holds true. At the beginning of your end step, if the enchanted creature's power is 4 or greater, you have to destroy it. So that's the reason why I had the Arachnus Spinner in here, so that you can go get it back when it falls off of creatures. And the last enchantment is actually a legendary enchantment. It's called Journey to Eternity, and it's a double-sided card. It's 3 to cast. You enchant a creature that you control. When an enchanted creature dies, you return it to the battlefield under your control. Then you return Journey to Eternity to the battlefield transformed under your control, and it turns into Atzal Cave of Eternity, which taps to add a mana of any color to your mana pool, but it has the ability for 5, you can return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's good graveyard recursion, and it works in a deck that likes to fight. The rest of the deck will be artifacts. There are no planeswalkers for this build. There is a spider planeswalker out there, but it doesn't fit the budget, so if you need that, you can add that later. But as far as the artifacts go, I'm going to actually run with the main part of the theme here. This is specifically Shelob oriented, and I'm going to explain this to you. So I start with Pathway Arrows. It's a 1 to cast equipment that equips for 2, and the equipped creature gains pay 2 and tap it. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature. If a colorless creature is dealt damage this way, tap it. And that part doesn't matter. It's the fact that you can directly deal damage to creatures using the spiders. The reason why this is in here in the next card, I'll show you that as well, is because Shelob's ability says that whenever another creature dealt damage this turn by a spider you control dies, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food artifact with 2 tap and sack it to gain 3 life, and loses all other card types. What that means is that if you use something like this on a spider, and you tap the spider to deal damage to something, that creature will die because Shelob is out, and it has Death Touch. When that creature dies, you then create a token of that exact creature, except it's a food artifact instead of a creature that has all the abilities of that creature. So if you kill other people's commanders, you can steal your opponent's commander's abilities. One of the things that I want to mention here is, this is something I thought of as soon as I saw Shelob spoiled. You can actually use one of your spiders to kill Shelob, giving you redundancy with the fact that you'll have a food artifact token on the battlefield that reads that all spiders you control have Death Touch and Ward 2 as well. Then it also gives redundancy for the token making ability if you have Shelob and a token that's on the field that does the same thing as Shelob, which means that now all things have Ward 2 multiple times, and whenever one of your spiders kills another creature, you get 2 tokens. So that's the synergy here that I'm going for, which is why Pathway Arrows and Wolf Hunter's Quiver is in here. Wolf Hunter's Quiver is a 1 to cast equipment. It costs 5 to equip, which is kind of expensive, but this is a late game thing. And the equipped creature has tap, this creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and it has tap, this creature deals 2 damage to target werewolf creature. So you can now start hitting creatures left and right, gaining the token, including your own tokens. Specifically, what you're going to want is probably Silklash Spider or Shelob to have the ability to do what their abilities are or have redundancy for them. So if you need any of that explained, please just ask. It's actually really good and is really devastating in a nice long game of Commander. The last thing I have in here is protection for Shelob, which is Mirror Shield. If you've seen any of my budget videos, you know this is the way that I do it. It gives the equipped creature +0/+2 and hexproof.
So that's what I put together for Shelob, Child of Ungoliant, as part of my Budget Commander deck precons. Before anybody rushes to the comment section, I know that Viridian Longbow is really needed for this build, but for some reason I didn't have any on hand to add to this version, but I'm looking to acquire some for future versions of the deck. This version of the deck was already sold by the time I made the video, and the person who purchased it said they were going to find one to add to it anyway, so it was all good. While this build is similar to the Ishkanah deck I featured recently on the channel, the addition of Shelob to the game has made that deck basically irrelevant, since Shelob is a far superior general to Helm a Spider Tribal deck. Ishkanah fits well in the 99 though, so it's not all bad, and the person who did purchase the Ishkanah deck has already been advised to swap the generals around. The Spider Tribal theme is fun regardless of which card you use to helm the deck, but Shelob just takes it to another level and helps make it go from just an average tribal build to something much more unique thanks to that last ability of hers. Over the last few weeks, I've had quite a few custom deck orders. Next week's video will most likely cover one of those, but I'm not sure which one it will be yet, so you're just going to have to check back next Friday to find out what I have in store for you. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and while you're waiting for my next video to drop, go check out some of my many other Budget Commander deck tech videos. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or concerns, or you just want to talk or chat about any of the videos I put out, you can do so using any of the methods I have displayed here. Additionally, if you would like to support the channel, you can do so in 3 ways. Donations are accepted and greatly appreciated. I have 3 methods with which you can do so displayed on the screen, and keep in mind that no amount is too small. If donations aren't your thing, and you would like to get something for your money, that's great too. I sell a lot of the decks I present on the channel, as well as mystery packs, so if you're interested in any of these, you can contact me using the information I have up on your screen right now. Directly contacting me is usually the best and cheapest way to do so, but you can always look at what I currently have available on the Facebook Marketplace. And lastly, if you want to show your love and support for the channel, but like myself, are a little strapped for cash, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, watch some videos and give them a like, and possibly share them out on your social medias you use to help spread my content to more people. No matter what way you choose is greatly appreciated and will help support the channel, and I thank you for it. Sadly, that is all the time I have for this video. Thank you for watching, and please, stick around and watch some of the many great videos I've posted over the last few years, and remember to check back again for new content I'll be posting every week. Have a great day.